Buddhist way of thinking urges individuals to live in exemplary and moral ways by pondering their way of behaving and way of life. In spite of the fact that bringing in cash and accomplishing material prosperity isn't precluded in this way of thinking, the way things are procured and utilized is a significant point. In Buddhist lessons, cash is viewed as a simple method for life, not an end. In view of the Buddha's own lessons, the accompanying essential standards of bringing in cash are accentuated. Inside the structure of Buddhist morals, the work or calling decided to bring in cash should be viable with the standard of right living. It implies that an individual procures in a moral and right manner. That is, no work ought to hurt others, shouldn't participate in shameless exercises. Bringing in cash by savagery, untruths, or abuse of others is contrary to this standard. The Buddha explicitly censured 5 kinds of gain that are in opposition to equitable living. Occupations that affect killing individuals or creatures, hunting, butchery, and so forth. Offer of arms or weapons of war, exploit or oppress individuals. Offer of liquor or medications, making or selling harms or other unsafe substances. As indicated by Buddhist way of thinking, bringing in cash shouldn't struggle with one's profound development. Individuals should attempt to get by, yet be mindful so as not to hurt others. Buddhism suggests balance in all everyday issues, and this way of thinking, called the center way, likewise applies to bringing in and spending cash. The center way centers around carrying on with a straightforward and significant existence without falling into outrageous riches or neediness. This is likewise reflected in bringing in cash. Similarly, as it is viewed as outrageous to forfeit all that to bring in a great deal of cash, it is additionally not prescribed to totally surrender material means. An individual's otherworldly turn of events and inward harmony ought to be safeguarded by making to the point of fulfilling the necessities of life. In Buddhist way of thinking, the center way, Sanskrit Madhyamaka, Pali Majjhima Padapada, alludes to a way of balance that maintains a strategic distance from the limits of narcissism and self-embarrassment. It is an essential idea presented by the Buddha in his most memorable lessons and is key to accomplishing freedom from misery, dukkha. This alludes to carrying on with a healthy lifestyle, especially keeping away from the limits of unnecessary extravagance or outrageous plainness. Prior to accomplishing edification, the Buddha himself rehearsed the 2 limits and thought that they are inadmissible. The center way urges an amicable way to deal with life, stressing the significance of moral lead, mental discipline, and intelligence. This viewpoint tends to the comprehension of the real world and presence. It dodges the limits of eternalism, confidence in an everlasting, constant self, and skepticism, forswearing of presence or significance. All things being equal, it centers around subordinate beginning, pratyaya samutpada, and the idea of fleetingness, directing professionals to see things as they really are. The center way is epitomized in the Honorable Eightfold Way, which gives functional moves toward developing moral way of behaving, mental concentration, and knowledge, prompting the discontinuance of misery. The idea of the center way reaches out past a straightforward equilibrium and into significant philosophical and down-to-earth applications. It saturates all parts of Buddhist work on, filling in as both a core value and a strategy for living. Living, staying away from destructive limits in conduct, like guilty pleasure and hurtful cravings or unforgiving forbearance, encourages an agreeable relationship with others and the climate. In contemplation, the center way proposes keeping away from overexertion or sluggishness, keeping a consistent, centered exertion. The center way difficulties dualistic reasoning and advances seeing reality for all intents and purposes. For instance, everything emerges because of explicit circumstances and stops when those conditions change. This understanding disintegrates the limits of perpetual quality and obliteration. This significant instructing makes sense of that peculiarities need innate presence, yet are reliantly associated. Perceiving this cultivates insight and freedom. The Buddha portrayed the center way as the ideal way for beating, enduring, and accomplishing nirvana. It coordinates common sense morals, reflection, and philosophical knowledge into a firm structure for change. By embracing the center way, specialists develop an existence of equilibrium, lucidity, and knowledge, eventually liberating themselves from the pattern of torment and accomplishing internal harmony. It is both an excursion and an objective, an immortal guideline pertinent to all who look for intelligence and congruity. In Buddhist way of thinking, cash is only an outside device, and genuine bliss and inward harmony don't rely upon it. Buddhists suggest that materialistic longings be met with limitation and in every case live with a feeling of happiness. Cash can fulfill material cravings, yet obvious joy is connected with one's internal equilibrium and otherworldly turn of events. Buddhist lessons encourage individuals to be happy with little and not to want superfluous things. The worth of life is to be tracked down in material abundance, yet in profound riches. Bringing in cash ought not be an objective, yet a method for giving the vital method for life. In Buddhist way of thinking, bringing in cash is basically as significant as how to utilize it. Cash ought to be spent sympathetic and liberally and used to help other people. Material assets ought to be a method for further developing the prosperity of others and adding to society, as opposed to improving one's very own joys. Liberality is viewed as quite possibly of the greatest worth in Buddhism. Buddhists don't reject that material abundance can further develop one's prosperity. However, they instruct that sharing material riches and helping other people is more useful to one's profound turn of events and internal harmony. Liberality likewise directs one's self-centeredness and ravenousness. Bringing in cash isn't against Buddhism. However, ravenousness and material cravings are viewed as quite possibly of the most perilous, profoundly unsafe quality in Buddhist way of thinking. Buddha considers insatiability, voracity, an over-the-top connection to the material world as a deception that forestalls the genuine profound improvement of man. Insatiability oppresses man and obliterates his actual satisfaction. Thus, Buddhist lessons encourage individuals not to quit any pretense of everything for cash and to shun inordinate cravings. In Buddhist way of thinking, the issue of bringing in cash is generally connected with one's moral and profound standards. Since each movement has an impact in itself, the Buddha's lessons give significant counsel on the most proficient method to bring in cash and how to utilize it. Understanding cash as a method instead of an objective guarantees that an individual is on the correct way. In the continuation of our story, we will examine various more profound ideas of Buddhism connected with bringing in cash. As indicated by Buddhist way of thinking, lucrative exercises are likewise connected with the law of karma. Karma, as the law of circumstances and logical results, expresses that each activity has its own outcome. Anything work individuals do, the consequence of that work will return to their life here and there. Hence, in the event that an individual brings in cash justified in moral ways without hurting others, this activity will make positive karma and get him otherworldly and material flourishing what's in store. In actuality, in the event that one attempts to bring in cash by hurting others or by corrupt means, this will make negative karma and lead to awful outcomes later on. In Buddhist way of thinking, bringing in cash with the right goal and involving it in moral ways assists one with creating better karma and accomplish long-haul bliss. As per these lessons, even extraordinary abundance can deny an individual of inward harmony and joy on the off chance that brought in cash isn't utilized as expected. Bringing in cash and involving it in the correct ways is significant in Buddhist way of thinking, for the person's own prosperity, yet in addition for the prosperity of society. One of the fundamental thoughts underlined in the lessons of the Buddha is that individuals utilize the material means they need to help society. Imparting cash to others makes an air of equity and liberality in the public eye, which adds to the improvement of Buddhist society. In Buddhist lessons, individuals are approached to make a culture of liberality and sharing. Since liberality is a significant piece of profound turn of events and debilitates an individual's childishness, making him more humane and kind. Liberality additionally diminishes one's insatiability and debilitates one's connection to material things, which is a significant stage towards accomplishing genuine otherworldly opportunity. Legitimate administration of cash is viewed as significant in Buddhism. Cash ought to be a way to meet the fundamental necessities of life and add to society, as opposed to being spent on pointless needs. In Buddhism, individuals are called to act with monetary insight, to spend what they acquire shrewdly, and to keep away from squander for any reason. As indicated by Buddhist lessons, Lavishness is a way of behaving that stops otherworldly improvement, since it makes an individual demonstration affected by wants that he have no control over. The objective of bringing in cash is an abundance, yet the way that cash can improve one's life in advantaged society. Savvy and judicious cash, the board holds a significant spot in Buddhist way of thinking, since it gets individuals in otherworldly equilibrium by keeping them far from covetousness and overconnection. In Buddhist way of thinking, avarice and covetousness are viewed as ethically destructive sentiments. Covetousness, while bringing in cash or gaining riches, can enormously influence an individual's profound turn of events. Voracity impedes an individual's actual profound harmony and brings him consistent nervousness. At the point when an individual needs to procure more, he really loses his inward harmony and creates some distance from otherworldly improvement, affected by ravenousness. Something customarily encouraged in Buddhist way of thinking to control eagerness is to be happy with less and partake in the more straightforward parts of life. Straightforwardness can give genuine opportunity and inward harmony by decreasing one's connection to the material world. Exorbitant longing for cash expands an individual's connection to the material world and removes him from otherworldly turn of events, which is the genuine objective of his life. At last, in Buddhist way of thinking, cash and material thriving may bring an individual transitory solace and flourishing, yet are not adequate for genuine profound opportunity. Cash can take care of the issues in the material world, yet it can't settle the tensions, fears, and inward struggles in the internal universe of an individual. Bringing in cash isn't an impediment in one's otherworldly excursion. However, getting joined to it and making it the sole motivation behind life is a serious mix-up. In Buddhist lessons, genuine freedom is accomplished by rising above connections to the material world and stopping avarice. Individuals ought to look for the significance of their lives in material addition, however, in otherworldly qualities and objectives. Bringing in cash is a method, yet the genuine reason for life is to track down profound opportunity and inward harmony. In Buddhist way of thinking, bringing in cash ought to be done ethically and equitably and shouldn't hurt others. Cash ought to just be a method for giving the necessities of life. Despite the fact that Buddhism doesn't deny material riches, it considers connection to material things to be a perilous snare. Gaining and utilizing cash ought to be offset with moral schooling, keeping away from insatiability and inordinate cravings. Buddhist way of thinking underlines that the genuine worth of life isn't in that frame of mind, in an individual's profound turn of events and internal harmony. Our recordings are not expected to advance Buddhism as a religion. All things being equal, our point is to feature the magnificence and shrewdness of Tibetan way of thinking. Sharing immortal bits of knowledge in a way adds a positive and significant touch to individuals' lives. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button for more videos. Until next time.